This is a Nintendo GameCube, 2001, and I'm going to say something controversial. I don't think Nintendo wanted this console to succeed. I know how that sounds. Why would a company launch a product they want to fail? That makes no sense. But hear me out. The GameCube made every wrong decision possible. No DVD player when DVDs were exploding. A toy design when competitors looked sleek. Expensive proprietary discs when everyone was using cheap CDs. Every single choice seemed designed to lose. But what if that was the point? What if Nintendo knew exactly what they were doing? What if the GameCube wasn't meant to win? It was meant to buy time? In 2001, Nintendo has a problem. The Nintendo 64 sold okay, 33 million units, but the PlayStation sold 102 million. Nintendo got destroyed. And now Sony is launching the PlayStation 2. The hype is insane. Pre-orders are through the roof. Microsoft is entering the market with the Xbox, massive budget, targeting older gamers, and online gaming built in, and they're coming for blood. So, Nintendo launches this, a purple cube, with a handle on the back, and that looks like a lunchbox. Now, everyone assumes Nintendo just miscalculated, that they didn't understand the market and they made some mistakes. But here's what nobody talks about. So Nintendo in 2001 were primarily a handheld company. The Game Boy had sold 118 million units, more than the PlayStation 1 and more than anything. And in 2001, Nintendo had just launched the Game Boy Advance that sold 81 million units. So here's my question. If Nintendo knew how to dominate in handhelds, why would they suddenly become incompetent in home consoles? Why would they make every wrong decision with the GameCube? Unless those weren't mistakes, and unless they were intentional. So, let's go through the so-called mistakes Nintendo made with the GameCube, and let's look at them differently. First, the mini DVD format. These discs are 8 centimeters, half the size of a regular DVD. They hold less data, they're more expensive to produce. And they can't play movies. Everyone said this was stupid. The PlayStation 2 played DVD. The Xbox played DVD. Why wouldn't Nintendo add DVD playback? It was basically free marketing. Families would buy a PS2 because it was a game console and a DVD player in one. Nintendo said no, and their official reason was, we're a gaming company, not a multimedia company, which sounds noble. But here's the thing, adding DVD playback wasn't hard. The technology existed. It would have cost Nintendo almost nothing. So why didn't they do it? Because they didn't want the GameCube to be a mass market product. They wanted it to be niche. They wanted it to appeal only to Nintendo fans, hardcore fans who would buy it for Mario and Zelda no matter what. Second, the design, though, look at this thing. It's a cube, it's purple. It has a handle on the back like a lunchbox. The PlayStation 2 looked like a sleek DVD player. The Xbox looked like a powerful PC. The GameCube looked like a toy. And Nintendo knew this would push away older gamers. They knew teenagers and adults would be embarrassed to own a purple cube. But they did it anyway. They released black and silver versions later, sure. But by then, the damage was done. The GameCube had a reputation as a kid's console. So why did they do it? Because they wanted parents to buy it for their kids, not teenagers buying it for themselves, not adults adding it to their entertainment center. Kids, young kids, the audience that would also buy a Game Boy Advance, the audience Nintendo actually cared about. Third, the controller. This is genuinely one of the best controllers ever made. Ergonomic, responsive, comfortable. Smash Bros. Players still use it competitively today, 23 years later. But it's also weird. The button layout is asymmetric. The C-stick is tiny. It doesn't look like a serious controller. It looks playful, fun, childish, again, deliberate. Nintendo wasn't trying to compete with Xbox's big, serious controller. They were building for their target audience. Kids. Every decision that looked like a mistake, it was a choice, a deliberate choice to narrow the audience, to make the GameCube a niche product for Nintendo fans and children. But why? Here's what I think was really happening in 2001. Nintendo looked at the market and realized something. They could not beat Sony in the home console space. The PlayStation 2 was going to dominate. It had third-party support, it had the brand, it had the DVD player, it had everything. So, Nintendo made a decision. Don't fight that battle, let Sony win. Put out a GameCube that's good enough to keep the hardcore fans happy, but don't pour resources into it. Don't try to compete. Instead, focus everything on handhelds and on the next generation. Look at the timeline. 2001 GameCube launches, same year Game Boy Advance launches. Nintendo markets the GBA aggressively. The GameCube, minimal marketing, the ads are there, sure, but compared to the GBA push, it's nothing. And then, in 2003, Nintendo starts developing the DS, dual screens, touchscreen. Revolutionary concept of engineers, designers, all working on the Nintendo DS. In 2004, the DS launches, and it destroys the PSP completely. The DS sells 154 million units, and the PSP sells 76 million. So, Nintendo wins handhelds. Again, and while all this is happening, Nintendo is also working on something else, motion controls. The Nintendo Wii, 2006, the Wii launches, and it changes everything. Motion controls, Wii Sports, accessible to everyone. Maybe your grandma can play it. Maybe even your little cousin can play it. It's doing something completely different if you compare to Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. The Wii sells 101 million units. The Xbox 360 sells 84 million. The PlayStation 3 sells 87 million. Nintendo wins again. So here's my theory. Nintendo in 2001 knew the GameCube was going to lose to the PS2. They knew it. And they were okay with it, because the GameCube was never the real plan. The real plan was the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the Wii. The GameCube was a placeholder, a distraction, something to keep Nintendo in the home console market while they developed the products that would actually matter. The GameCube sold 21 million units, a commercial failure. But the GBA, DS, and Wii, combined, they sold over 330 million units. 330 million. Nintendo didn't fail, but they just sacrificed one product to dominate everywhere else. Okay, so that's the theory. But is there evidence? Let's look at what actually supports this. First, the mini DVD format. Everyone said it was anti-piracy, and sure, that was part of it. But here's what's interesting. Those mini discs, retrocompatibility with Wii would use 5 years later. Same basic technology, and the GameCube was the trial run. Second, the design. That handle on the back, everyone made fun of it. Who's carrying a console around? But you know what else easily carrying a console around? The Wii. Different design, sure. No hand handle. But the philosophy was the same. Portable, friendly, approachable. Nintendo was testing design language, seeing how the market would react to a fun console instead of a serious one. And when the GameCube failed commercially but succeeded with kids and families, Nintendo doubled down on that with the Wii. Third, the first-party games. The GameCube had incredible first-party games. Metroid Prime, Super Smash Bros., The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. These are some of the best games ever made, but Nintendo didn't push third-party support. They didn't fight for exclusives, they didn't undercut Sony on licensing fees to attract developers. They just let third-party developers go to PlayStation. But why? Because they didn't need third-party support if the GameCube was just a placeholder. They needed their first-party games to be excellent so the hardcore fans would stay loyal, but they didn't need to win the generation. They just needed to survive it. And fourth, the money. Nintendo made a profit on every GameCube sold. Even at $199, even at $149 when they dropped the price, they made money. Meanwhile, Sony and Microsoft were selling consoles at a loss, hoping to make it back on software. Nintendo didn't need the GameCube to sell 100 million units. They just needed it to not lose money, and it didn't. It kept Nintendo in the game while they prepared the real weapons, the DS, the Wii. So, the GameCube wasn't a failure. So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more. See you in the next one.